"You belong to me, Laundress," said the prince, not knowing she carried the letter that would ruin him. "Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from." The Palace of Castile stirred like a restless heart that spring morning of 1856. Every corridor shone with hurried steps and whispered commands. Servants carried trays of polished silver, maids rushed with armfuls of silk gowns, and the air was filled with the scent of starch and nervousness. In one of the laundries beneath the west wing, Isabella Duarte worked silently, sleeves rolled, hands submerged in warm, soapy water that had once caressed the linens of queens. She had been up since dawn. Her rhythm was precise, almost prayerful, as if each fold and rinse could erase the noise above her. The other girls often joked that she moved like someone with secrets, and perhaps she did. Hidden beneath the plain folds of her dress, close to her heart, was a small bundle sealed with wax. A letter written by the late king himself, given to her by a dying noblewoman who had whispered, "Keep it safe, child. The truth must one day be known." Isabella had never read it, but she knew it was meant for the living son of that king, Prince Alejandro de Alvarado. Her task that morning was simple: deliver a freshly pressed set of linens to the prince's quarters. Yet, as she ascended the servants' stair, fate seemed to conspire. The hall outside the royal chambers was crowded with courtiers waiting for the prince's appearance before the council. They laughed, trading gossip like jewels. When Isabella emerged from the stairwell, her basket balanced carefully, their laughter turned toward her. "Look at that," said a young nobleman with a smirk. "The laundress carries more dignity than a duchess." "She must think herself quite important," another added. "Perhaps she dreams of royal notice." The words pricked like needles, but Isabella kept walking. To answer would be to invite ruin. Yet one of them, Lord Fernand, known for his cruelty, stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "You cannot pass, girl. The prince is not fond of interruptions." "I am merely delivering linen, my lord," she replied softly. "Then wait until I say you may." The laughter that followed was sharp. Before she could turn away, the air in the corridor changed. The courtiers fell silent as the doors of the council chamber opened. Prince Alejandro stepped into the light. He was tall, impeccably dressed, his dark hair neatly tied back. His gaze, cold and assessing, swept over the group. "What is the meaning of this noise?" Fernand bowed, too quickly. "Forgive us, your highness. We were only ensuring that the servants know their place." Alejandro's eyes moved to Isabella. For a moment, he said nothing. Then his tone hardened. "And you? What place is yours?" Her pulse quickened. "The laundry, your highness." "Then why are you standing here as if you own the hall?" "I was told to wait," she said, glancing toward Fernand. Alejandro noticed the gesture. His expression shifted, slightly, but enough for Isabella to sense danger. "So you obey a lord before your prince?" The courtiers waited, breathless, sensing entertainment. Isabella bowed her head. "I obey orders, your highness. Nothing more." Alejandro's lips curved in a cold smile. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, my lord." "Then remember it." His voice carried across the marble. "From this day you serve under my command. The palace will know that the laundress belongs to me." A ripple of laughter followed his words. The courtiers found the scene amusing, another servant humbled for sport. But Isabella's silence was not the silence of fear. She lifted her head, and their eyes met, hers steady, his defiant. "Your highness," she said quietly, "I belong to no one." The laughter died. For a moment, even the polished air of the corridor seemed to still. Alejandro stared at her, unable to believe what he'd heard. "Repeat that," he demanded. Her voice did not tremble. "No one owns another, your highness." The words fell like stones in water, rippling through the crowd. The prince's jaw tightened. He was not a man accustomed to challenge, least of all from a woman of the servants' quarters. Yet behind his indignation, something else stirred. Curiosity. He took a step closer. "You speak boldly for one who scrubs linen." "I speak only the truth," she said. "Then you shall learn the cost of it." Without another word, he turned and strode down the corridor, his cloak sweeping after him. The courtiers whispered excitedly. Isabella stood alone, her heart pounding but her face calm. When the corridor emptied, she leaned briefly against the wall. The small bundle beneath her dress felt heavier than ever. That evening, in the servants' quarters, the story had already spread. The laundress had defied the prince. The laundress would be dismissed. Some said imprisoned. Others said she would disappear before dawn. But Isabella continued her work in silence, folding linen by the faint light of an oil lamp. Rosa, her closest friend among the servants, whispered, "Bella, you should beg forgiveness. No one speaks to him like that." "I spoke as I must," Isabella replied. "He's cruel when crossed." "So they say." She paused. "Yet even cruelty cannot change truth." Rosa shook her head. "You'll not last another day." Isabella smiled faintly. "Then I shall make this day count." At that moment, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The head steward entered, expression unreadable. "Isabella Duarte," he said, "you are to report to His Highness at first light." The room fell silent. Rosa whispered, "He means to punish you." "Perhaps," Isabella said softly. "Or perhaps he wishes to see if I am afraid." She slept little that night. The candle burned low as she removed the sealed letter from beneath her bodice and laid it on the table. The wax glimmered in the dim light. The royal crest, a lion beneath a crown, seemed to watch her. She ran her finger along its edge, wondering what truth it held. What could be written within that would change the course of so many lives? At dawn, she dressed neatly, her hair tied back, her heart steady. The corridors were quiet when she reached the upper floor. A guard opened the door to the prince's chambers without a word. Alejandro stood by the window, facing the gardens below. Morning light softened his profile. He did not turn immediately. "You kept me waiting," he said. "I came as ordered, Your Highness. Do you know why you are here? I imagine you will tell me." He turned then, and she met his gaze. There was something new in it. Not anger, but calculation. "You defied me before the court. That cannot go unaddressed." "I spoke with respect. You questioned authority. I answered truthfully." Alejandro crossed the room slowly. "You do not know what it means to bear a crown. To lead, one must be obeyed. And to be obeyed," she said, "one must first be respected." The words struck him like an unexpected note. He looked at her differently, as though trying to place her among the categories of his world, and finding none. "What is your name?" he asked. "Isabella Duarte. How long have you served here?" 3 years, Your Highness." He studied her. "You are not from Castile?" "No. My family was from Toledo." "Your accent betrays education." "My father was a librarian before the war," she said. "He taught me letters." Alejandro's brow furrowed. "A laundress who reads. Knowledge does not belong to the rich alone." He stepped closer, his voice low. "You speak as though you wish to offend me." "I speak as though you might listen," she replied. The words hung between them. Then he laughed, short, sharp, and disbelieving. "You are either brave or foolish." "Perhaps both." His amusement faded into something quieter. "Tell me, Isabella, do you think me cruel?" She hesitated. "I think you are lonely." His eyes flashed. "You presume too much. I only observe." Alejandro turned away as though her words had struck deeper than he wished to show. "You will remain in service to my household," he said finally. "You will report here each morning. Perhaps in time you will learn when to speak and when to hold your tongue." She bowed slightly. "As you command, Your Highness. Do not mistake this for kindness." "I would not dare." When she left his chambers, her hands were trembling, though her face remained calm. In the corridor, she breathed deeply. The encounter had changed something, not only in him, but within her. His cruelty had seemed to falter when faced with honesty. She sensed that beneath the armor of pride, the prince was a man uncertain of himself, and uncertainty was the first crack in any wall of power. That afternoon, as she returned to her work, whispers followed her again, but now they carried a different tone. Curiosity mixed with fear. The laundress who had challenged a prince and lived to tell of it. Isabella ignored them, her thoughts elsewhere. In his chamber, Alejandro could not concentrate on the documents spread before him. His counselor droned on about land disputes and trade treaties, yet his mind wandered to the girl's voice, calm, unshaken, almost compassionate. "You are lonely," she had said. No one had ever spoken such words to him. When the meeting ended, he dismissed his attendants and stood alone at the window. Below, in the courtyard, he saw her crossing the gardens with a basket in her arms. Something inside him tightened. He had meant to humiliate her, to remind her of her place. Instead, he had lost control of his own. That evening, during supper, his mother, the queen, noticed his distraction. "You look troubled, Alejandro," she said. "Merely tired. Then rest. The council speaks of a servant who defied you today. You must act swiftly, or others will follow her example. She is a foolish girl," he said, trying to sound indifferent. The queen's eyes were sharp. "Then dismiss her." He hesitated. "Not yet." His mother's gaze hardened. "Do not allow sentiment to weaken you. A prince must be obeyed." When he did not answer, she rose and left the table. Alejandro remained alone, staring at his untouched wine. For reasons he could not name, he could not dismiss Isabella. Later that night, he walked through the silent corridors, drawn to the lower wings where the servants slept. The air smelled of soap and damp linen. He paused outside the laundry, hearing faint laughter within. Through the half-open door, he saw Isabella with the other women, folding sheets, her sleeves rolled, her movements steady. Something in the simple grace of her work stirred him. He turned away before anyone could see him. In her room, Isabella prayed softly before sleep, asking for strength, not safety. When she lay down, she thought of the prince's eyes, how they had shifted from arrogance to confusion. It frightened her, not because she feared him, but because she sensed their paths had only begun to cross. The next morning dawned bright, but a strange tension filled the palace. Rumors whispered of sudden changes in service assignments. When Isabella entered the laundry, the steward was waiting. "New orders," he said curtly. "You are to serve in the prince's household directly. From today," the other women gasped. Isabella's heart stilled. "You mean, in his chambers?" "In all matters he requires. Those are his words." Rosa caught her arm. "Bella, you can't. Everyone knows what happens to women sent there." "I have no choice," Isabella murmured. "Then at least promise me you'll be careful." "I always am." She walked through the palace toward the grand staircase, the folded letter still hidden near her heart. As she climbed, she wondered if the day had come to use it, or to destroy it. When she reached the prince's door, the guards stepped aside. Inside, Alejandro stood waiting, sunlight behind him, his expression unreadable. "You are punctual," he said quietly. "I was told to serve, Your Highness." His gaze lingered on her face. "Then serve." She met his eyes, steady as ever, and answered, "As you command." For a long moment, neither moved. The air between them felt charged, almost alive. Then, as she turned to set down the linens, his hand caught her arm, firm, but not harsh. His voice dropped to a whisper that trembled slightly, betraying something even he did not understand. "You will return tomorrow, to my chambers." The following morning dawned grey over the Palace of Castile. The bells had not yet called the servants to their tasks when Isabella walked across the marble floor, her steps soft, her basket steady. She had not slept. Every sound of the night, the creak of doors, the hush of footsteps in the corridors, had carried the echo of the prince's voice. "You will return tomorrow, to my chambers." Now she stood before the great carved doors, the guards silent as statues. They opened without a word, and she entered the prince's apartments. Alejandro was at his desk, dressed in a dark coat, his hair slightly disordered. He did not rise when she curtsied. "You are prompt," he said. "I was ordered to be." He gestured toward a table stacked with letters and garments. "Those are to be pressed and returned to the wardrobe by noon. The valet will assist you." "Yes, Your Highness." But when she approached, the valet was dismissed with a wave of Alejandro's hand. The door closed behind him, and the silence deepened. "Tell me," the prince said after a pause, "do you still believe that no one belongs to another?" "Yes." He turned in his chair. "Even if obedience keeps order? Even if defiance invites chaos?" Perhaps obedience to injustice is the greater chaos. He studied her as though she were a puzzle he could not solve. You speak as though the world owes you a hearing. It owes everyone a hearing, Highness. He leaned back. You speak with the confidence of a woman who has nothing to lose. I have everything to lose, she answered softly. And that is why I speak carefully. His gaze lingered on her, then drifted toward the window. You intrigue me, Isabella Duarte. I thought to punish you, but it seems punishment has turned to curiosity. Tell me, what are you hiding? Nothing that concerns your Highness. That sounds like something a liar would say, or someone who values her peace. He almost smiled. Peace is rare in palaces. You'll learn that soon enough. The conversation ended as servants began to arrive with trays of papers and tea. Yet throughout the day, Alejandro's eyes followed her, when she folded his garments, when she poured water into the basin, when she crossed the room with the quiet grace of someone who knew how to vanish in plain sight. By noon, the air between them had changed. He spoke less sharply. She moved more cautiously. Still, there was a tension neither could name. When she finished her work, she bowed. May I return to the laundry, Your Highness? Not yet, he said. Sit. She hesitated. Your Highness, I command it. She sat. He regarded her for a long moment. What did you think of me before yesterday? I thought nothing, Your Highness. A laundress cannot afford thoughts about princes. And now? She looked straight ahead. Now, I think you are a man who does not know himself. The words struck like a whisper, too close to the truth. His fingers tightened on the edge of the table. You risk much speaking so. And yet you asked. He rose abruptly, walking to the window. Go, he said at last, but return tomorrow. The next days passed in strange rhythm. Each morning she came, each afternoon she left, and each time their conversations grew less formal. He asked about her family, her childhood, the books her father had read to her. She answered with restraint, never stepping beyond the boundary of propriety. Yet every exchange felt dangerous, like standing too near a flame that gave both warmth and warning. The servants began to notice. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Rosa pleaded with her to feign illness, to ask for reassignment, but Isabella refused. Running would only make their words true, she said. On the third day, as she folded linen by the window, Alejandro asked quietly, Do you believe in destiny, Isabella? I believe in choice, and if choice leads you to ruin, then ruin was the price of truth. He looked at her, eyes dark with something unspoken. You fear nothing. I fear myself, she said, because sometimes I forget who I am when I look at you. He turned away, breathing unsteadily. You should not say that, nor should you keep me here. I could send you away, he said, but I will not. Why? Because I would miss the sound of your defiance. That night, in his study, Alejandro could not read. The candle burned low as he recalled her words. He wondered what secret made her eyes so guarded. He had seen women of all ranks, duchesses, countesses, ladies of wit and vanity, but none who met him with such calm. It unsettled him more than hatred ever could. In the days that followed, the court began to murmur. The Queen Mother, always alert to whispers, summoned her son. Alejandro, she said, her voice smooth as polished glass. I hear troubling talk, that a laundress attends you daily, alone, that you delay your meetings, that you dismiss your counselors to watch her work. Explain yourself. She serves efficiently, he replied. She tempts gossip, said the Queen. You will end this at once. He met her gaze without flinching. No, Mother, I will not dismiss her. The Queen's tone chilled. Do not let sentiment blind you. She is beneath you. Perhaps, he said softly, that is what I need, to be reminded what lies beneath me. The Queen's eyes darkened. If she ruins you, do not expect my pity. Isabella knew none of this. She only felt the growing coldness around her. Servants stopped speaking when she entered a room. Her meals were delayed, her linens misplaced. Once, she found her basket overturned, its contents scattered. Yet she said nothing. One afternoon, as she polished the brass frame of the prince's mirror, he spoke from behind her. They are making your life difficult. I expected nothing else. You could leave. I would understand. I was ordered to stay. He moved closer. Sometimes orders can be broken. Not mine, she said quietly. I do not break promises. To whom did you make one? She hesitated. To a dying woman. He frowned. What promise? That I would guard something precious until its time came. He stepped around her. Curiosity ignited. What is it you guard? Not my secret to tell, Your Highness. Then whose? The king's. Alejandro froze. My father? She nodded once. He entrusted it to another before his death. She entrusted it to me. What is it? Truth. Truth about what? Her eyes lifted to his, calm as always. You, Highness. The silence that followed was so complete that the sound of a carriage in the courtyard seemed distant thunder. Alejandro's voice was barely a whisper. Do you mock me? No. You carry something of my father's? Yes. Then show me. I cannot. You refuse an order? I keep a promise. He stared at her, anger and bewilderment warring within him. You will regret this. Perhaps, she said, but not as much as breaking faith. He turned sharply and left the room. That evening he paced his study until the candles guttered. Who was she to speak of secrets tied to his father's name? What could a laundress possibly know? And yet her eyes, steady, sorrowful, had held no deceit. The next morning, he did not summon her, nor the next. For 2 days, Isabella remained in the lower quarters, uncertain whether her silence had cost her position. Rosa urged her to forget the prince, to burn whatever she carried. No letter is worth your life, she said. It is not my life that matters, Isabella replied. On the third night, she found a folded note beneath her door. The handwriting was unknown. You are being watched. Burn the seal before it burns you. Her hands trembled as she held it to the candlelight. She thought of the letter hidden inside her mattress, the royal seal intact. Who could have sent this warning? The prince? No, his mother, more likely. Or someone else, someone who knew the truth. The next morning, when she entered the laundry, the steward met her with a frown. His Highness requests your service again, he said. She felt her breath catch. When? Now. Alejandro stood by the window when she entered. His face was drawn, sleepless. You disobeyed me, he said. I obeyed my conscience. You keep a letter that belongs to me. It belongs to the king. I am his son. Are you certain? His head snapped toward her. What do you mean? She realized she had spoken too freely and lowered her gaze. Forgive me. I spoke in haste, but the words had already taken root in his mind. He crossed the room slowly. You will tell me everything you know. There is nothing I can tell, Your Highness. Then I will find it myself. He stepped closer. She held her ground. The air between them trembled with unspoken things. Fear, anger, something perilously close to tenderness. Why did you come to the palace? He asked suddenly. To work. No, you could have served anywhere. Why here? Because this is where the truth sleeps. He stared at her, and for a moment, the mask of royalty slipped. You speak in riddles. You think me blind. I think you see more than you admit. He turned away, rubbing his temples. Leave me. She curtsied, her heart pounding. When she reached the door, his voice stopped her. Isabella. Yes, Your Highness. Do you hate me? She hesitated. I pity you. Why? Because you were born where love is a danger. He said nothing. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Later that day, in the great hall, the Queen Mother met her by chance. You are the Laundress, she said, her tone smooth. My son speaks of you too often. I serve as commanded, Your Majesty. See that you do. Ambition in your station is unwise. I have none, Your Majesty. The Queen's eyes narrowed. We shall see. That night, Isabella felt the weight of eyes on her wherever she went. The warning note echoed in her mind. Someone would come for the letter soon. Someone powerful enough to destroy her if they found it. She stayed awake, listening to the sound of the rain on the window. When dawn broke pale over the rooftops, she gathered her courage. The letter remained hidden, untouched. She dressed, prepared to face whatever came. Before noon, she was called again to the prince's chamber. She entered quietly, expecting anger. Instead, she found Alejandro seated at the table, the royal seal in his hand. Her blood turned cold. "I found this," he said, "in your room." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Who told you where to look?" "No one needed to tell me. I knew." He turned the letter over, studying the wax crest. "My father's seal. You spoke the truth." "Highness, please!" He broke the seal. She gasped. "You must not—" "It was addressed to me," he said, opening it. His eyes moved across the lines, his breath faltering. She watched, helpless, as the color drained from his face. When he finally looked up, disbelief had hardened into something like fear. His voice was hoarse. "Who are you, Isabella? And what have you done to me?" The air in the prince's chamber was heavy, as though every breath had to fight its way through silence. The letter lay open on the table between them. Alejandro stared at the words again, as if hoping they might change, as if ink could be persuaded to lie. Isabella stood motionless by the door, her hands clasped before her. "It is false," he said finally. "It must be false." "It is not," she replied. His eyes flashed toward her. "How do you know?" "The Countess de Vega gave it to me before she died. She said it was written by the king himself, sealed in his hand." He took the parchment again, reading the trembling lines. The late king's handwriting was unmistakable, his seal intact. The letter named another man, Don Esteban de Alvarado, as the king's loyal friend and savior during the Civil War. It spoke of gratitude, of debt, of a child born in secret. The words at the end cut deeper than any blade. "Let this truth be hidden for the peace of the realm. The child shall be raised as mine, for Castile needs no scandal." Alejandro looked up, his voice hoarse. "So it is true. I am not the king's son." Isabella did not answer. He rose abruptly, the chair scraping the floor. "You should have burned it." "I could not. You think this truth is noble. It destroys everything, my name, my title, my life. It was never meant to destroy. It was meant to protect the realm, as your father wished." He paced the room, hands clenched. "You speak as though you understand royal burdens." "I understand human ones," she said quietly. "Lies weigh as heavily as crowns." He turned to her then, eyes burning with pain and pride. "You had no right to keep this from me. I had no right to reveal it either. So you chose to torture me instead?" "I chose silence until I was forced to speak." He sank into a chair, head in his hands. "Do you know what this means? If the council learns the truth, I am nothing. My mother's life, my honor, ruined." "She already suspects," Isabella said softly. "That is why she watches me." He looked up sharply. "You've spoken to her?" "She summoned me once. She warned me to stay away from you." Alejandro's expression darkened. "She knows something. Perhaps she always did." Outside, thunder rolled. The afternoon light dimmed, and rain began to lash against the windows. Isabella moved toward the hearth to close the shutters, but Alejandro stopped her. "Leave them. Let the storm speak. It suits this day." For a long time he said nothing. Then, almost in a whisper, "Did you ever think what would happen to me when you handed me this truth?" "Yes," she said. "I thought you might finally be free." He laughed bitterly. "Free? You call this freedom?" "Freedom from falsehood, yes." He rose again, walking toward her. His steps were measured, but his voice trembled. "You have ruined me, Isabella. Do you understand that? If ruin is the price of truth, then I accept it. But I do not," he said, his anger cracking like the thunder outside. "You stand there so calm, as though the world is not collapsing." She met his gaze, steady, unflinching. "The world collapses every day for someone like me, Your Highness. We learn to stand upon its ashes." His breath caught. "You dare to pity me?" "No," she said. "I only see you as you are." He stared at her, something raw and human flickering in his eyes. Then he turned away and strode toward the door. "Leave. Before I say something I will regret." She bowed slightly, though her heart ached. "As you wish, Your Highness." He did not look back as she left. The days that followed were tense and silent. Alejandro cancelled his appearances, ignored his counsel, and locked himself in his chambers. The Queen Mother, furious, demanded explanations that never came. The courtiers whispered that the prince had fallen ill, that the laundress had bewitched him, that the palace itself hid a curse. Isabella, confined again to the servants' quarters, endured their stares. Rosa whispered one evening, "They say he's dismissed you. He has not." "Then why hasn't he called?" "Because truth wounds before it heals." Rosa shook her head. "You speak like someone in love." "Love?" Isabella murmured. "No, Rosa. Love does not feel like this." The next morning, a messenger summoned her to the chapel. Father Mateo awaited her there, his kind eyes shadowed with worry. "Child," he said, "you've done a dangerous thing." "I kept a promise, Father. And in doing so, you may have unleashed more than you know. The Queen Mother came to me. She wants to know where you got the letter. She suspects I still have copies. She suspects everything. She fears scandal. You must be cautious. The Queen has power to destroy those who stand in her path." Isabella bowed her head. "I am not afraid for myself." "Then fear for the prince. His mother will not forgive him if this truth spreads. I would never harm him." "I believe you, but others will not." That night, as she returned to her small room, she found the door slightly open. Her candle trembled as she entered. The mattress had been turned, her chest pried open. Someone had searched everything. She knelt beside the bed, checking the loose stone where she had once hidden the letter. It was empty. Her breath caught. If the Queen's men had taken it, Alejandro's secret was no longer safe. She hurried through the corridors, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. The palace slept, save for the guards' torches flickering along the walls. She slipped through the shadows until she reached the prince's door. He was awake, standing by the window, staring into the storm. "What are you doing here?" he asked, turning sharply. "The letter is gone." His face went pale. "Gone? Someone searched my room. I think your mother has it." Alejandro cursed under his breath. "She will use it against me." "Then you must act first." He began to pace. "If she exposes me, the council will force me to abdicate before I even ascend. Everything my father built will fall." "Not everything," Isabella said. "His honor remains, if you protect it with truth." He stopped pacing. "You speak as though truth can feed the hungry or calm the court. The world thrives on lies, Isabella. Then let it starve." Her words cut through the silence. He stared at her, then shook his head. "You would see me stripped of title and name. I would see you free of deceit." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You do not understand what you ask of me. Then teach me," she said. His eyes searched hers, and for the first time, she saw not anger, but despair. "If I confess this truth, my mother will fall, my name will vanish, and I will have nothing. You will still have yourself." He turned away, whispering, "That may not be enough." A knock startled them both. One of his guards entered, bowing low. "Your Highness, the Queen Mother requests your presence in her private chamber." Alejandro's expression hardened. "Tell her I will come." The guard withdrew. Isabella stepped forward. "You cannot face her alone. She will twist the truth to her will. I have faced worse. Not when the weapon is your own blood." He looked at her then, something like tenderness softening his face. "You care for me still, even after what I said?" "Care is not a choice," she said. He smiled faintly, then left the room without another word. The Queen Mother was waiting in her private salon, dressed in mourning black, though no one had died. At least not yet. She dismissed her attendants, leaving only her son before her. "I know what you found," she said coldly. "I have the letter." Alejandro met her gaze. "Then you know the truth." "I know a lie written by a dying king. You will forget it." "I cannot." "You will," she hissed, "because your life depends on it. Do you think the council will keep you as heir if they learn you are not of royal blood? Then let them strip the crown from me. I never wanted it." "You are a fool," she cried. "Do you not see? This is not only about you. It is about the throne, the family, the kingdom." He answered quietly, "The kingdom deserves honesty." The queen's eyes blazed. "And who taught you this nonsense? That laundress, that peasant girl with her dangerous ideals?" "Do not speak of her so. She has filled your head with poison." She opened my eyes. The queen's face hardened. "Then I will close them again. Leave her to me." Alejandro stepped forward, his voice low and sharp. "If you harm her, mother, you will lose me forever." Her lips curved in a bitter smile. "You already belong to her, it seems. You shame this house." "I find no shame in truth. Then you find no mother in me." She turned away, dismissing him with a gesture, but he did not move. "What will you do with the letter?" "What I must," she said. "Destroy it. Then you destroy yourself." He left her chamber without bowing. Outside, the rain had stopped. The palace was quiet, the torches burning low. Alejandro walked through the corridors, as though the weight of the world pressed on his shoulders. He reached his rooms and found Isabella waiting, her face pale with worry. "She will not stop," he said. "Then neither must we." He sat heavily, covering his face with his hands. "I do not know what to do. Tell the truth before she does." "She will deny it. Then let the people judge." He looked up at her, incredulous. "You think the people care for truth? They care for bread, for safety. My name keeps them safe. Your name keeps them silent." Their eyes met, hers fierce, his weary. The distance between them felt unbearable. He rose, standing close enough for her to feel his breath. "You risk everything for a man who has given you nothing," he said. "I risk it for the man you could become," she answered. The words hung in the air like a vow neither dared claim. Before he could speak again, the door burst open. A guard entered, breathless. "Your Highness, the Queen Mother's attendants have spread word. They say the laundress has stolen a royal document. The council is to convene at dawn." Alejandro's face went white. "She means to blame you." Isabella steadied her voice. "Then we must be ready when they call." He reached for her hand. "I will not let them touch you." "They will touch us both," she said. "But only one of us can stand afterward." His grip tightened. "Isabella, listen to me. If they ask, you must deny everything. Say the letter was a lie. I will not lie again. You will for your life's sake." She met his gaze, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "If I die for truth, so be it. But if you lie for fear, you will live in chains." He turned away, unable to answer. Outside, dawn began to pale the sky. The bells of the cathedral tolled across the city, calling the court to gather. The sound echoed through the halls, solemn and relentless. Isabella and Alejandro stood in silence, knowing the hour had come. The door opened again. Father Mateo entered, his face grave. "The council awaits you both. The queen has already spoken." "What has she said?" Alejandro asked. "That the laundress deceived you. That she forged a letter to blackmail the crown." Isabella's hands clenched. "Then she has won." Alejandro turned to her, his voice trembling. "Not yet." He led her toward the great hall, past the guards, past the whispers. The doors opened, revealing the gathered court, ministers, nobles, the queen upon her throne. Every eye turned toward them. Alejandro stepped forward, the letter in his hand, his voice ringing clear. "You wish for truth? Then hear it from my lips." The queen's expression froze. "Alejandro, stop." But he did not. He held the letter high for all to see. "This is my father's hand," he said. "And it says I am not his son." The hall erupted in gasps. He turned to Isabella. "And she alone had the courage to show me what I was too proud to see." The queen rose, trembling with fury. "You doom us all." Alejandro faced her, calm at last. "No, mother. You doomed us long ago, when you chose a lie over love." A hush fell. Then, from the back of the hall, a voice cried out, "Seize them!" The guards advanced. Isabella reached for Alejandro's hand, but before their fingers met, the guards surrounded them, and above the din of voices, she heard the queen's command, cold and final. "Take the laundress away." The guards seized Isabella by the arms, their grip rough but hesitant, for even soldiers felt unease in the face of the Queen Mother's wrath. Alejandro's voice broke through the confusion, sharp and commanding. "Release her! She is under my protection. No one moved. The Queen's cold tone cut across the hall. You have no authority here, not anymore. Then I speak as a man, he said, stepping forward. Not as a prince, not as a son, but as one who has had enough of deceit. His words silenced the room. The nobles shifted uneasily. Some avoided the Queen's gaze. The ministers whispered among themselves. The truth, once spoken, could not be buried again. Alejandro looked at the captain of the guard. If you lay another hand on her, you will answer to me. The captain hesitated. The Queen saw it and raised her voice. Obey your sovereign. But the soldiers hesitated still. The air had changed. The power in the room no longer flowed from the throne. It hovered uncertainly between mother and son. Alejandro took Isabella's hand and drew her to his side. No one leaves this hall until I am heard. The Queen's lips trembled with fury. You shame yourself before the court. Better shame in truth than honor in lies, he said. Father Mateo stepped forward from among the courtiers. His calm voice filled the silence. Perhaps it would be wise to let the prince speak. The truth cannot harm the just. The Queen glared at him but did not stop him. Alejandro turned to the gathered court. You have all lived under the illusion of a perfect crown, of a lineage untouched by sin. But the letter I hold tells another story. I am not my father's blood. I was raised in his name to preserve peace after war. He wished to protect Castile from scandal. I will not curse his memory for that, but I will not build my life upon a lie. A murmur swept through the nobles. The Queen clenched her hands around the armrest of her chair. You would throw away a kingdom for the words of a servant, she demanded. Alejandro's voice softened. Not for her words, for his, for my father's. His truth deserves daylight. You are a fool, Alejandro. Do you know what the council will do when they confirm this? Yes, he said, and I accept it. He turned to Isabella. You gave me the truth when no one else dared. You could have used it to destroy me, but you did not. You waited for me to be ready to face it. Isabella's eyes filled with tears, but she held her composure. I only wished to keep faith with the king's final will. And you did. He looked at her, his voice lowering. You have given me back my soul. The Queen struck her hand against the arm of her throne. Enough! You will retract every word, both of you. No, Alejandro said quietly. Today I renounce my claim. The crown will pass to the council's choice. My father's line ends with truth, not deceit. Gasps broke through the court again. The Queen rose from her throne, pale with disbelief. You cannot. You are my son. He met her eyes sadly. I was the king's gratitude, not his heir, and I will not live as a false prince. She took a step toward him. If you leave this hall, you will never return. You will have nothing. He smiled faintly. Then I will have what I have long sought. Peace. The Queen's gaze darted toward Isabella, her voice dropping to a hiss. This is your doing. You think he loves you. You are a shadow that will fade when his pity ends. Alejandro stepped between them. If you harm her again, I will expose every secret this palace hides. Let her go. The Queen stared at him, her face hardening like stone. Then, with a gesture of bitter resignation, she signaled the guards to withdraw. The hall emptied slowly, the courtiers whispering as they passed. The sound of their voices faded down the corridors until only the three of them remained. The Queen, her son, and the laundress who had brought down a dynasty. You have broken my heart, the Queen whispered. Alejandro bowed his head. No, mother. I have freed it from falsehood. She turned away and walked out of the hall, her steps echoing like distant thunder. Silence followed her departure. Alejandro turned to Isabella. You should leave the palace tonight, before she finds another way to punish you. I will not leave you, she said. It is not safe. Then let me share your danger. He shook his head. I have already cost you too much. You gave me truth, she said softly. That is not a cost. It is a gift. They stood close, the world outside the doors forgotten. I thought I hated you, he murmured. I thought you came to destroy me. I thought you would destroy yourself, she answered. But I was wrong. He took her hand, his voice trembling. "You are the bravest person I have ever known." "I am only a laundress," she said, smiling faintly. "Then the world needs more laundresses." They both laughed quietly, the sound fragile but real. Father Mateo entered quietly through the side door. "The council will meet at sunrise," he said. "They will expect your formal abdication." Alejandro nodded. "It will be done." The priest looked at Isabella. "And you, child, what will you do?" "I will go where he goes." Father Mateo sighed. "Then may God keep you both, for you will need courage beyond measure." When the priest left, Alejandro walked to the window. The rain had stopped. The night sky was clear again, the stars sharp above the rooftops. "Strange," he said, "how the world looks unchanged after everything collapses." "Because the truth rebuilds what lies destroy," Isabella replied. He turned toward her, the moonlight catching the quiet grief on his face. "You should sleep," he said. "Tomorrow will not be easy. I will stay until you rest." They sat by the dying fire in silence. The crackle of the embers filled the room, soft as breathing. For the first time since his father's death, Alejandro felt the weight of fear lift from his shoulders. When dawn came, the bells of the cathedral tolled again. The court assembled in the council chamber, smaller this time, stripped of ceremony. The queen sat apart, her face unreadable. Alejandro entered without crown or escort, wearing a simple dark coat. Isabella stood near the door, allowed to remain by Father Mateo's insistence. Alejandro addressed the council. "My lords, I come not to defend myself, but to release the realm from deception. I am not the king's blood. I renounce all claim to throne and title. I ask only that my father's memory be honored for his mercy, not stained by my false inheritance." The eldest minister rose. "Your Highness, if what you say is true, the crown must pass to the Duke of Segovia." "So be it," Alejandro said. The queen's eyes glistened with tears she would never shed. "You are walking away from everything," she said quietly. "I am walking toward something truer," he replied. The Duke approached, bowed, and accepted the council's decision. It was done. The realm would endure, cleansed of pretense. As the hall emptied, Alejandro approached his mother one last time. "Farewell, mother. I will pray for your peace." She did not answer, only looked at him with an expression between pride and pain. Then she turned and walked away. Father Mateo blessed them both and followed her out. Alejandro turned to Isabella. "It's over." "No," she said. "It has just begun." He smiled faintly. "You are right, as always." They left the palace together, passing through the servants' gate as dawn spilled over the city. No guards stopped them. No one dared. For several days they traveled in silence, taking the road toward the coast. Alejandro spoke little, as if afraid to disturb the fragile calm between them. Isabella washed their clothes by streams and cooked simple meals over small fires. He carried the few coins he had, offering them for lodging in humble inns. They were no longer prince and servant, only two souls seeking peace. One evening, as they reached a small village by the sea, the air smelled of salt and promise. Children ran through the narrow streets, and the sound of waves filled the pauses between their footsteps. Alejandro stopped to watch the sunset. "I never thought I'd see this as a free man." "Freedom suits you," she said. He turned to her. "I have nothing left, no name, no home. Yet when I look at you, I feel richer than I ever did." She smiled. "Then perhaps we have both been poor and rich in turn." They found shelter in a fisherman's cottage offered by an old couple who asked no questions. The sea stretched endlessly beyond the windows. At night, the waves sang softly against the shore. In the quiet that followed, Alejandro spoke again. "Do you regret giving me the letter?" "Never," she said. "Even knowing what it cost you? It gave me something worth more than safety." "What is that?" "You." He reached for her hand. "Isabella, when I first saw you, I thought you were defying me out of pride. Now I see you were only protecting your soul. You made me see what I truly am, a man, not a title." She shook her head gently. "You made yourself that, Alejandro." He smiled at the sound of his name without title. "Say it again, Alejandro." He closed his eyes briefly. No one has ever spoken it like that. Silence fell again, filled only by the whisper of waves. He looked at her, the words forming slowly. You were right, Isabella. Belonging is not command. It is choice, and I choose you freely. She felt tears rise, but held them back. And I choose you, not as a prince, but as the man I've come to know. He drew her hand to his heart. Then promise me one thing, that wherever we go, we never let pride rule us again. I promise. He leaned forward, his forehead resting gently against hers. I thought truth would destroy me. Instead, it led me to you. She smiled through tears. Truth has strange ways of saving souls. They stood there, the last light of day washing over them. The sound of the sea filled the silence like a benediction. For a long moment, neither spoke. The pain, the fear, the court, they all seemed far away now, swallowed by the rhythm of the waves. When the moon rose, Alejandro took a deep breath. Tomorrow, we'll visit Father Mateo. He wrote to me. He wishes to bless our union. Isabella's heart caught in her chest. He knows we are here? He found us. He said love should not hide. She smiled, trembling. Then tomorrow, let it be. Alejandro brushed a strand of hair from her face. No crown, no court, no witness but the sea. That is all we need. They stood together, hands entwined, the tide whispering at their feet. The long storm had passed, leaving only calm, and the promise of a dawn that would never be ruled by lies again. The morning broke clear and golden over the sea. The waves rolled softly against the shore, as though even the ocean had chosen peace. Isabella stood at the doorway of the small cottage, watching the sunlight spill over the sand. For the first time in her life, she felt no orders pressing on her, no voices demanding, no fear whispering. Only quiet. Only freedom. Behind her, Alejandro stirred from sleep. He had slept little, but his restlessness had changed. It was no longer born of guilt or doubt, but of new life ahead. He rose, barefoot, his shirt unbuttoned, the air gentle against him. For a moment, he simply watched her, this woman who had undone his pride and saved his soul without meaning to. You're awake early, he said softly. I couldn't sleep. The sea keeps calling me. He smiled faintly. It calls to me too, but not as much as you do. She turned, her eyes warm with quiet laughter. You always say things you never mean to. I mean every one of them, he replied. I just never knew how to say them before. She crossed to him, her hand brushing his. Do you miss it? The palace, the court, the name? He shook his head. I thought I would, but here, no one bows, no one flatters. I carry my own name now, the one I've chosen, not the one given by deceit. And what name is that? Alejandro Duarte, he said, if you will let me share yours. Her breath caught. You wish to take my name? I have nothing else worth taking, he said simply. Except your hand. She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes shimmering. You already have that. He smiled, a quiet smile that belonged only to her. Then today, before Father Mateo, I will ask for your heart as well. The hours passed quickly. Father Mateo arrived just after noon, his robes carrying the scent of salt and wind. Age had not slowed his step or dimmed the warmth in his eyes. He greeted Isabella as if she were his own daughter, then embraced Alejandro with the quiet pride of a father. So, he said, you've both chosen love over power. That is a wiser crown than gold. Alejandro smiled. And a heavier one to wear. The priest chuckled. Then wear it together, and it will not weigh you down. They stood on the small rise overlooking the water. The breeze lifted Isabella's hair, and her simple white dress fluttered against her ankles. Father Mateo opened his worn prayer book, though he barely glanced at it as he began to speak. Two souls stand before God and the sea, he said. Not to bind, but to promise. To walk not above one another, but side by side. Alejandro took Isabella's hands in his. When I first saw you, I thought you were defying me. I was wrong. You were teaching me courage. You broke my pride, and in doing so, you gave me my heart. Her voice trembled as she answered. You once told me I belonged to you. I thought it was a curse. Now when you look at me, I know it was a prophecy. I belong to you not by command, but by choice. Father Mateo smiled gently. Then, before heaven and the waves that never cease, speak your vow. Alejandro looked into her eyes. I will walk beside you, Isabella. I will be the man you believed I could be. Wherever truth leads us, I will follow. And I, she whispered, will never let your heart forget what it means to be free. The priest raised his hand. Then, by the grace that joins two lives in one, I bless this union. May the sea guard your love, and the truth sustain it always. The wind carried his words out over the water. The moment felt eternal. No crown, no kingdom, only the sound of the waves bearing witness. Alejandro drew her close and kissed her gently, reverently, as though every sorrow had found its ending there. The old priest smiled. I will leave you to your happiness. As Father Mateo walked back toward the village, the newlyweds stood alone on the shore. Alejandro turned to the sea. It feels strange, he said, to begin again with nothing. Not nothing, Isabella replied. We have a home, a name, and each other. And that is enough? She smiled. It always was. They returned to the cottage as the afternoon light deepened. Isabella began to hang fresh linen by the window, humming softly. Alejandro watched her, a warmth spreading through him he had never known in the marble halls of Castile. You look happy, he said. I am, she answered. For once I am not hiding anything. He approached her, slipping his arms around her waist. Nor am I. My mother sent word this morning. She turned quickly. From the palace? Yes. She has retired to the convent of Santa Clara. She said only one thing, that she prays we find peace. Isabella's eyes softened. Perhaps she too has found truth. Perhaps, he said quietly. And if she ever needs us, I will not turn away. You still love her, Isabella said. She is my mother, he replied. Even when she tried to make me her creation, she believed she was protecting me. Now maybe she can rest. They stood together by the window, watching the tide rise and fall. As evening drew near, villagers began to gather along the shore. Word had spread of the stranger who once was a prince and the laundress who became his bride. Fishermen brought flowers, children ran with shells and ribbons, and old women smiled knowingly. One of them called out, Sing for us, Senora. We've not heard joy in this village for years. Isabella laughed. What should I sing? Anything that tells your story, the woman said. Alejandro glanced at her, amused. Do you have such a song? I will find one, she said, and began softly to hum a tune her mother once sang while washing clothes by the river. The melody was gentle and clear, rising and falling like the waves. Alejandro joined her voice with his, rough but earnest. The people clapped, swayed, and laughed together. When the song ended, the crowd cheered and drifted away, leaving them again in the soft dusk. You've made a kingdom here, he said. It's only a village, she teased. But they look to you the way they once looked to me. Only now, their eyes hold kindness, not fear. She smiled. Then we have done something good. They walked along the sand until the stars appeared. The moon's reflection shimmered across the waves, like a path of silver. Isabella stopped and turned to him. When you first said those words to me, you belong to me, Laundress. I wanted to hate you forever. I know, he said quietly, and you had every reason. But now, when I hear them in my memory, they sound different. He brushed a lock of hair from her face. Then let me say them again, as they should have been said. She looked at him expectantly. He took her hands, his voice low and steady. You belong to me, Isabella, not because I command it, but because you choose it. And I belong to you, for the same reason. Tears glimmered in her eyes. Then we are equals at last. We always were, he said, but it took me too long to see it. They walked back to the cottage hand in hand. The night was quiet, the air warm and scented with salt. Inside, the small fire glowed. Alejandro opened a small chest and drew out a bundle wrapped in linen. What is this? She asked. He unfolded the cloth, revealing the letter, the very one that had changed their fates. It was burned along one edge, its wax seal broken. I thought it was gone, she whispered. I found it among my things when we left. I could not bring myself to destroy it. Then let me, she said. He hesitated. Are you sure? Yes. It has done its work. It deserves to rest. They carried it outside together. The stars blazed above them, the waves whispering at their feet. Isabella held the parchment over the small fire pit beside the cottage. Goodbye, old truth, she murmured. Thank you for freeing us. The flames caught the edge of the paper. It curled, blackened, and drifted upward as ash, scattering into the wind. Alejandro watched until the last ember vanished. There, he said. Now no one can use it again. She took his hand. Now nothing stands between us and tomorrow. They walked back to the cottage, where the fire burned softly. The air inside was warm and golden. Alejandro poured 2 cups of wine from the small clay jug the villagers had given them. To truth, he said. She raised her cup. To freedom. They drank, their laughter quiet, unguarded. Later, as the moonlight fell across the room, Isabella rested her head on his shoulder. What will we do now? Live, he said simply. Work, love, and wake each morning grateful for the life we built. And if one day someone comes asking for the prince? He smiled. Tell them he drowned in the sea the day he found his heart. She laughed softly. Then the sea is kinder than I thought. He looked at her, his voice tender. Isabella, I once believed power made a man strong. But you, your kindness, your courage, taught me strength is found in mercy. She traced his hand with her fingers. And you taught me that love need not bow to anyone. The night grew quiet again. The fire dimmed, but the warmth remained. They sat side by side, watching the flames fade to embers. Outside, the waves rolled endlessly toward the shore, their rhythm steady, like the beating of a heart. In the months that followed, life in the small village blossomed around them. Alejandro worked among the fishermen, mending nets, carrying baskets to market. Isabella taught the children their letters beside the chapel, her voice clear and patient. Together they repaired the old roof of their cottage and filled it with laughter and the smell of bread baking. The villagers came to love them both. To them, Alejandro was simply a man of wisdom, quiet and fair, who never raised his voice and always helped those in need. Few knew the full truth, and none cared. One evening, after the day's work was done, they sat on the sand as the sun dipped low. The horizon burned gold and rose. Alejandro turned to her, smiling. Do you ever miss the palace? She shook her head. I think of it sometimes, but only as one remembers a storm after finding shelter. He laughed softly. Then this is our shelter. Yes, she said, and our kingdom. The tide reached their feet, cool and gentle. The sound was like a heartbeat, steady and eternal. Alejandro drew her close, his voice quiet against her hair. I once believed I ruled a realm. Now I know I only serve love. And in serving it, I am finally free. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with the reflection of the stars. Then we are both rulers, for love has made us equals. He smiled, and the world seemed to still around them. When the first star appeared, they rose and walked hand in hand toward their home. The wind carried the scent of salt and the memory of every storm they had survived. Behind them, the sea whispered their story of a prince who learned humility and a laundress who taught him the meaning of truth. And as they crossed the threshold, Alejandro whispered, his voice low, filled with the peace he had chased all his life. We belong to each other now, Isabella. Always. Thank you so much for listening to this story, all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.